Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. This episode of the Mark and Martin's Revolution is brought to you by Vodcast TV, Johannesburg's premier shared podcast studio platform. If you've ever wanted to host your own podcast for yourself or your business, there's simply never been a better place to do it. Visit vodcasttv.com/revolution now and get yourself a discount on your first order of a podcast.
A revolution is a fundamental and relatively sudden change in political power. An organization which occurs when the population revolts. This is the Marco Martin's Revolution, powered by Vodcast TV. Visit vodcasttv.com for more.
My guest today is not only Pretoria's most eligible bachelor, he is also a corporate mogul and a fucking rock star. Carlos Sanches, AKA Jessy Switchblade, welcome to the show.
Hey Marco, how you doing? You good?
Good, brother.
Good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think so. We've tried this before.
We tried this once before.
Yeah,
and my fuck up meant that
Act 1,
we
Scene 2.
couldn't do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
So last time we started talking about football.
I don't know. Can we avoid that?
Let's avoid that today. Although you're a West Ham fan, so that's not too bad.
It depends on how I feel in the morning.
Right.
Yeah. I'm currently supporting West Ham.
Okay.
But I could change to United if they go on a run.
Yeah. I think it's good to have a premier side.
Yeah.
Like a really top tier side, because then you've got chances of winning titles, right? That's always going to be a thing. Then you've got these chances of winning titles, but then it's good to support another team where the ambitions are different, where you're happy with sixth place, or you're happy with
those are better teams to support, man. It's just less stress.
It's less disappointing, right?
Yeah, of course, because those teams don't set high targets. A lot of them just want to finish in the Premier League, so they can continue plying their trade in the Premier Football League in Europe, I suppose. I think, look, I've been a Man United fan since 1989, so it's been a long time. When I started supporting United, a few years later, they went on that run. Yeah. The Ferguson years. And I suppose as a Man United fan, after that, your expectations were so high that after, post 2013, I don't think Man United fans, well, especially our generation, are used to losing. So it was a very hard pill to swallow. I've been doing the West Ham thing on and off since sort of the 90s, because they, my favorite band's Iron Maiden, and they're Iron Maiden's team. In fact, Steve Harris, Iron Maiden's bassist, played for them for the under-19s in the 70s, late 70s.
How's that?
And he was either going to turn professional as a footballer or carry on with the band dream. And then he went and he formed Maiden.
This sounds like Lars Ulrich, the tennis player.
I mean, it's crazy. It just shows you how talented these guys are.
Yeah. So
I've always had a soft spot for them. Over the years now, I suppose, with all the Afrikaans, they call it pain and laden, pain and suffering of being a Man United fan, I've slowly started shifting over to West Ham. I suppose it's less expectations. So when they do well, like currently West Ham are doing really well, it's like they've just won the Champions League. So it's, you lesser the expectations and then you're happy all the time.
Enough about football. We've bored the hell out of people enough with that.
Yeah, look.
Iron Maiden's your favorite band.
Yeah.
I wore a band t-shirt for you today.
I see that. I'm impressed. Motley Crue, that's a great album. That was the last album they recorded where they were completely strung out on heroin and all sorts of wonderful things. And then after Motley Crue, after the Girls tour, the majority of them went into rehab and changed their ways. And then they came out with 89. They released Dr. Feelgood, where they were actually all sober, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's probably their best album as well.
It's their best album, sober?
Well, it's their best album, period. So, yeah, there's a big fallacy that you write better music when you're on drugs or when you're stoned. I don't know, I've never performed well when I've drank too much or whatever the case may be. Whenever I'm sober and I'm clear is when I give my best performances.
I think that's it's certainly a fallacy. But there is evidence to support it in certain ways. So I think expansive mind drugs, not necessarily numbing stuff like heroin, but
sure.
LSD, what that did to music. specifically.
No, sure.
What LSD did to music is you can't even quantify it. It's unquantifiable.
I still don't know if the music was better though.
No,
Better written.
But if you look at how music changed, it changed music today. It really did. I mean, Jimi Hendrix.
No, sure, and in a lot of facets, not only in guitar-orientated music, but also electronic music.
Of course.
You know, that late 60s revolution in San Francisco, the hippie era and all that, and all the experimentation.
The biggest revolution in electronic music was technology.
Yeah.
It's just creating more synthesizers, allowing creative people to create more sounds and things like that. So I think the development of the technology, the synthesizer is one of the most important inventions in music history.
No, sure. But a lot of those people that were at the forefront of the that sort of hippie revolution in the late 60s, early 70s there in San Francisco, and they did all that experimentation with LSD and everything. A lot of them sort of towards the end of the 70s had moved over to electronic music. I mean, there was a huge movement where, what is that guy called? Goa Dave. The guy left San Francisco and went and formed the colony in Goa in India. And that's where they started that psychedelic trance movement, also very much powered by DMT and LSD and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that accelerated a change in music that's no longer necessary for you to be creative, right? I think those expensive drugs helped people develop a new sound and introduce that new sound to a larger public. But at this point, do you need to expand your mind to create art anymore? I think because we've had all the influence from those LSD musicians from the 70s and 80s, I think that it's no longer necessary.
Yeah.
Where
look, you
people
can't go
can
very far now.
Make creative music.
I think we've gone as far as we can. I mean, I think trap is the most out there at the moment, and I don't think you can go much further than that. You know, you've had trap, you've had
trap music.
Yeah, you've had power noise. You've obviously had extreme death metal and whatever. I think you can't go more extreme than all of those. You know,
there's ludicrous. I mean, there's like a speed. There's a type of like speed trance genre.
Yeah,
I don't even remember what it's called.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's just incredibly noisy.
I think the word you're looking for is terrible.
It's horrible.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Which is what a lot of people would say about thrash metal.
No,
and
sure.
You are a big thrash metal fan.
Yeah, that's my go-to genre. Yeah.
So I mean, it's very noisy. It's very loud. It's very difficult to listen to. It's not something you can put on in the background and just like enjoy.
It's good to wash
day.
dishes. It's good to wash dishes too.
Is it good to wash dishes? How quickly do you wash the dishes?
I mean, very fast. But I mean, you'll break a few things along the way. But
so I think, and again, thrash metal even itself is diverse, right? You get Metallica thrash metal, where you have the early days of like Kill 'Em All album, and then you get thrash metal of more modern bands, or even if you look at Slayer versus Metallica, and you look at when Slayer are really thrash metally, it's very hard to listen to.
You kind of get three different types of thrash. You get your sort of original old school Metallica thrash.
Which is the easiest to listen to.
Which is the easiest to listen
musical,
to.
Right?
Which, Megadeth, Testament, they fall into that. Then you get your more, but I mean, that's got more singing as opposed to screaming. Then you get your Slayer-esque type thrash that's got more screaming as opposed to singing. That's your Death Angels, your Slayer. Although, I mean, Death Angels vocalist, Marcus Aguirre is a great vocal. I mean, he's a great vocalist, but it's very manic. I think if you've got anxiety, it's not great for you. It's very manic, it's very in your face, it's fast, and then you get crossover, which is like your so I mean, thrash originally is just faster punk music with a hell of a lot of distortion. Now your crossover, they sort of celebrate those punk skate roots even more. So when you listen to it, it's got a little bit of rap, it's got a hell of a lot of punk. And that's kind of your suicidal tendencies and your Anthraxes and those type of things, So that most probably gave birth was one of the biggest sort of influences to nu metal. I mean, if you think about what Anthrax was doing in the late 80s, and then they did that collab with Public Enemy. Which was a full-on hip-hop. I mean, Public Enemy, along with NWA, were like the two biggest hip-hop acts in those days. And they released that, I think it was an EP, and then they had that song, Bring the Noise. I think that created, that was a blueprint for nu metal. I mean, they were doing rap and metal years before Korn and Rage Against the Machine were doing it.
But of course, a lot of these metal inspirations are inspiration around you and, of course, your own personal band. a lot of it is influenced by Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax, the thrash metal music from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But it's not all you listen to.
No, not at all. I mean, look, heavy metal is a big part of who I am. I always tell people it's the closest I'll get to a religion. You know, it's very personal to me. It's helped me through a lot of tough times. And when I talk heavy metal, I'm talking the broader genre. I'm talking thrash, death, black, whatever. But I enjoy hard rock. I enjoy alternative. I enjoy grunge. I was big into grunge in the 90s. You know, I fell for that Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains thing, hook, line, and sinker. I suppose we were Depro kids back in the day with our baggy corduroy pants.
I'm a few years younger than you, so I think I missed that one.
Yeah, look, it was a depressing.
I started off with Blink-182.
It was a depressing time. I've dipped my toe in that pond, but not for me. But yeah, I've listened to a bit of punk. I love electronic music. I've done most of the electronic genres, from psychedelic trance to bubblegum trance to techno. To that German dark techno, to electronic body music, which is basically gothic dance music, to dark wave. I suppose, it depends on the mood, really. I've been listening to a hell of a lot of Lana Del Rey lately. That's what happens when you go through a breakup. But
I think only women are supposed to listen to Lana Del Rey after a breakup.
She's a great lyricist.
And the new Adele album, right? That's like
I haven't heard that yet.
Album.
I haven't heard that yet. I also haven't heard the new ABBA album yet.
Gosh, ABBA, if there's anything I
can't believe they released the new one after all these years.
If there's anything I hate, it's ABBA.
Really? I mean...
And I get so much hate for saying that. I don't know why people like them.
It reminds you of Christmas. My dad used to always... he had these limited edition ABBA vinyls he'd always whip out
around Christmas
in between
time.
the Boney M and the Modern Talking. So it's nostalgic, I suppose. How can you not listen to Dancing Queen or Mamma Mia and not feel...
It kills me.
Oh, dear.
It kills me.
I'm a little bit like that with the Bee Gees for some weird reason.
I like the Bee Gees, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about the Bee Gees just...
it's really high-pitched vocal.
Yeah, there could be that. The Gibber Brothers. Yeah, it could be that. But
or do you have something against Australians?
No, not at all. In fact, I think for many years I was a closet Australian cricket fan.
Don't say that too loud.
During the Shane Warne, Brett Lee days. Yeah, you can't tell that to South African. They were hammering us back in those days.
Yeah.
But I suppose, with music, years ago I was so obsessed with heavy metal, and if you didn't listen to metal, you were you were like a loser, and this, that, and the other. And then I remember I was in a band with a guy called Lani van der Walt, and he's quite a famous muso in the scene. He owns Volmer Records, recording studio in Pretoria North. He was in some important bands in the 90s. Not My Dog, played for Pete Botha in Jackhammer, and so he was our bassist in a Metallica tribute project we had called Gunship. And at the time, his daughters were still young. They were like, I think 9, 10, round about there. And I think Justin Bieber came, or some pop star, and he had to take his daughters there. And I remember saying, "Sure, dude, what a waste of a night for you." And he's like, "You know what? As long as Justin Bieber's music is making my daughters happy, then music is ultimately winning." And I think that's the bottom line. I think everyone is so obsessed with what they listen to and genre, and I don't listen to that.
I think especially anyone who's into an alternative genre,
I think,
right?
Yeah, like if music makes you happy,
metal is extremely alternative as a genre. It's such a niche genre. It's not popular like dance music, etc.
Sure.
And you'll speak to people who are in any of these niche genres, and it becomes such an important part of their identity and why they're so different.
100%.
That criticizing anything else, especially something mainstream, makes them more important.
Yeah.
And I think that's the trap that we all fall into if we like an alternative genre, is that it's our point of importance, and it shows how much more cultured we are, or intelligent we are, or whatever, to what the mainstream masses just
and I suppose also, I don't know if it's that bad now, but I mean, growing up, we just come out of apartheid, and we were going through the satanic panic in the 90s. Metalheads were super ostracized. You were Satanists, and you were this, and you were that, and you were bad seeds, and so you end up defending your own. You become really passionate about if it's if it's not metal, it's crap. So you actually end up developing this identity because you've been bullied into it. Now I think it's a little bit different because there's so many more extreme genres, even in electronic music.
And then I think also because your community is bigger because of the internet, right? You meet other people who like what you
exactly.
like.
So then you don't feel so marginalized.
Exactly. It's not you and your 4 buddies from school, the only 4 people in your whole school who like metal music.
You know, the Satanists. So that's the thing. And I think and metalheads are big gatekeepers. You know, they're big custodians of it all because of how they were treated. But at the end of the day, you know, music, and especially alternative music and the more extreme forms of music, if it's making you happy or if it's making anybody happy, then music has served its purpose. No one person ever picked up an instrument to upset someone else or to be down or to, you know, they do it to bring joy into their lives and into other people's lives, I suppose, as musicians. So it was such a simple statement, but it was so profound, you know, as long as Justin Bieber's making my daughters happy, then music has served its purpose. And I was like, wow. You know, and that really changed my mentality towards a lot of these things because I was like, you know,
you closed yourself off to a lot of mainstream music.
Yeah, you do, and you actually do enjoy the stuff. Like, I mean, going back to the ABBAs and whatever, you know, growing up, as I started getting into heavy metal, I was like, oh, yuck, I don't want to listen to ABBA. Oh, yuck, Modern Talking. All these years later now, I mean, I go back, I mean, stuff will be on, I won't change it. You know, back in that techno revolution, 2 Unlimited and those things, you know, you wouldn't catch me dead listening to that. Now I've got a little playlist on my Spotify with Dr. Alban and 24/7, and because it's like, no, it's cool. I'm allowed to.
I remember Dr. Alban. That's some nostalgia for me.
Yeah, Dr. Alban, sing hallelujah. It's very Portuguese.
And Snow.
Snow, yeah. What was it? 12 inches of snow.
Yes, with the song, the big song's Informer, right?
Informer, yeah, the one that nobody knows how to sing except I lick it, boom, boom, down.
Yeah. There's no other lyric.
No, I mean,
you always need to lick it, boom, boom, down.
Yeah, he wings it. They actually, I remember like for years, man, like we had radio stations in South Africa would have these competitions to see who could rap that full lyric. Yeah, I know a dude that knows the words in full. It's actually quite amazing.
I went to a wedding once and someone knew all the words to Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby.
So I might know all the words to Ice Ice Baby.
All the words?
I might. I used to.
We'd have to put it on.
So back in 1991 at Veld School, we got up and then we did an Afrikaans version of it. Because I mean, that song's big in 1991.
Yeah.
So when we went to Veld School, we did an Afrikaans, you know, like, right, stop, collaboreer en luister. Hy is terug met 'n nuwe invensie. And then we went on. Don't ask me to finish it now.
No, I won't. Don't worry. And that brings, I think last time we brought up a band called Mr. Big.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I think they're a group of musicians who aren't spoken about a lot other than by perhaps musicians.
Yeah.
Because they're an interesting one where they're a band that was put together by celebrated world-class musicians in California, got together to make a rock band that was going to be commercial.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's often where you using top-class musicians to try and come together and do something commercial. I think a lot of them have collaborated on stuff before. Don't destroy the table.
I'm trying not to.
I think it's not often that happens where you're creating a commercially viable band off of just
out of monster
successful musicians, right?
Yeah, and it's a weird one because...
And their name's interesting as well.
I mean, they were super vanilla. I mean, there was nothing. I mean, but you must remember back in the 80s that was selling. You know, every A&R guy was trying to get the new Motley Crue, the new Def Leppard, the new Guns N' Roses, the new Poison, new Van Halen, and they fell. I mean, there was a lot of imitations. They just happened to be very good musos that, you know, I mean, look, they've got some really good tracks. I mean, Green Tinted 60s Mind, obviously the ballad To Be With You. But nobody, I think everyone just knew them as Mr. Big. Nobody actually knew how influential or how good those musos were. I mean, Billy Sheehan.
Pat Torpey, great drummer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Paul Gilbert on guitar, who's
he had
famous for having a screwdriver with plectrums on it.
100%. I mean, he had, I don't know if you've heard a band of his, Racer X.
Yeah. With,
yes, it's
Marco Miniman on drums.
That's it, yeah. No, that band is like...
That's wild. So that's more what I was saying about where you have these world-class musicians who are trying to do something very musical and they get together, they collaborate with other like known musical musicians. Yeah. Then they'll create something like Racer X, which isn't very commercially viable.
100%.
It's sort of musician music, a bit like Dream Theater.
But I suppose as a muso, you need to do that. I mean, I've got a lot of mates here in South Africa who've got heavy metal bands, and their first love is heavy metal. But I mean, as a metal muso, you're not going to make any money in this country. And then, sort of as their full-time job, they play on studio albums for like Afrikaans musos, or they go on tour with Afrikaans musos as the guitarist or the drummer or the bassist, for the shows. I mean, that's where all the money is. I was speaking to a mate of mine who works for Red Bull, more specifically sort of part of Red Bull Music, and he was telling me that they did a survey where the most listened to genre in the country is gospel, and number 2 is Afrikaans. So there's a lot of money in the Afrikaans scene. So these guys are jamming away Monday through to Friday or whatever at Pudstal and those type of places. And then on a Saturday, they go make no money. They've got to pay their petrol to go play a metal gig, but that's where their passion lies. And I suppose that's what Mr. Big and them did. I mean, these guys, with the talent that they were having, they deserved a little bit of commercial success.
I think a lot of them, like Billy Sheehan, I think he played bass for massive acts.
He's got such a CV. All those guys do. I mean, if you see, take a guy like Alice Cooper, for example. You must see the awesome ensemble of musos that he has in his albums. I mean, if you take, what's that album? Hey Stupid. I mean, he's got Slash from Guns N' Roses, Nicky Six from Motley Crue, I think Mick Mars from Motley Crue. I mean, there's a ton of musos there. In those days, a lot of those guys were appearing on each other's albums. I mean, Slash was appearing on Michael Jackson albums. Aches were just swapping around. I mean, what's his name? Vinny Appici on drums, he appeared in a few different albums. Jimmy Bain, I mean, all those guys. Doug Aldrich, I mean, they didn't have Doug Aldrich is one of them. He's such a great muso, and he just never really had a band. He's now settled down with Whitesnake for the last few years. He was a Dio as well before Dio passed, but I mean, he never really had a band. He just
session musos.
I just love that.
Yeah, and I think growing up as a musician in this country, that was always your ambition or dream as a musician.
Well, if you're going to make money, you're going to be a session muso. I mean,
and you wanted to be a session muso.
Yeah,
it's an incredibly difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and of course,
incredibly difficult thing to do. The quality, the level of session musicians is extremely high.
Yeah,
even
100%.
in South Africa.
No, of course.
And I think one of the biggest things is in the 90s in particular, there was this massive movement where recording studio time cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So session musicians, purely because they would get something done really quickly, they'd be able to get a song right really fast.
Yeah. They
were worth their weight in gold just purely because they would save the record labels so much money on studio time.
100%. And I mean, that's why you see so much of that in a lot of those 80s albums. If you go go through the tape or the vinyl.
Well, you look at Nathan East, for example, as a bass player. I mean, it's Michael Jackson, Madonna,
100%.
Nathan East was the session bass player in the 90s in California.
But I mean, I suppose there's always you're always going to have to balance it out, passion project versus making a bit of tom.
I think the ideal scenario is to have made enough money to do something that you just want to do. Bit like Joe Rogan did.
Sure.
Where the podcast has now taken him to the next level.
Yeah. Or just, exactly. I mean, look, back in the 80s, and it was much easier in those days. I mean, record labels were hungrier. I mean, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't home studios, so back in those days, I mean, these bands that are so seminal in these days, like Metallica and Maiden and whatever, they came out, played a few shows, boom, and they got signed. Now it's much, much harder. Okay, except for Twisted Sister. It took Twisted Sister 10 years to get signed. They played, I was actually watching their documentary the other day on Netflix. In 10 years, they played something like 3,600 shows. That's basically a show a day. They were playing in Manhattan Island in New York City, and they were playing like they had residency at a club. They were playing Monday through to Sunday. And it's quite interesting because going back to the whole thing of musicians and drugs, Twisted Sister have always been clean because they were playing every single day. This night he's never drank since he was a kid. I mean, he got together with his wife, I think, when in his teens, and they're still married. And what's the guitarist called? JJ French, also sober. And because they had no choice, because they were grinding it hard Monday through to Sunday. There was no rehabs like Motley Crue, disappearing record label, because they didn't have a record label backing them. Tommy Lee and Nicky Six could overdose on heroin, almost die, go to hospital, and then have like a 6-month sabbatical and still come back and continue because a record label was carrying them.
Yeah.
So it took out of all those big acts from the 70s, 80s, Twisted Sister took the longest to get recognized. It took them 10 years.
Yeah, and now it's so easy to get a record deal because it doesn't mean much, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You create albums so that you can go on tour, whereas before you used to go on tour to try and sell albums.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the like tours used to cost bands money, but it would promote their album. They'd make money selling albums.
Yeah.
Whereas now you're just trying to make good music, distribute it for nearly free online, so that you can go on tour, so that I'll make a tequila can stick some money in your pocket for having their sound behind you.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
And bands surprisingly make a lot of money out of merch. Like, I mean, the merch game. I mean, back in the 80s, obviously, Kiss made, and some of those bands, I mean, they perfected the merch game. I mean, I think Kiss in 1981 were releasing Kiss lunchboxes, you know. I mean, that was such a concept back in those days, you know, such a foreign concept. Whereas now, I mean, bands, I mean, you see, it's comic books. They make their own wine, their own whiskey. I mean, Megadeth has actually just launched their own cryptocurrency.
Okay.
That's a bit weird. But,
yeah, and then they'll probably all do NFT as well, right?
Yeah. But although I think NFT, yeah, that's the biggest. I don't know. What do you think of NFTs?
I think I'm so scared to give my honest opinion on NFT because I was so wrong about Bitcoin in 2011. I was so wrong about Bitcoin in 2011 that I'm going to be wrong about NFTs as well. But it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
why physical art has a value, so now digital art has a value. That makes sense to me. That's fine.
Sure.
It's just, how do you continue to perpetuate value based on the rights to your digital art, right? So if I animate a monkey, and then every time that monkey is posted on Facebook has to pay me 2 cents or whatever.
Yeah.
Then that's where royalties and rights to digital artwork make sense to me, because it's like, cool, I'm investing a certain amount of money here that will then give me return. Or if you're buying, and then to take that back to the physical art space, of course, a physical piece of art's not necessarily going to make you money, but if you're an art collector and you've got a beautiful piece of art in your house that's only yours, you're walking past a unique individual piece of art every day that's yours. NFTs odd like that to me, because everyone can go and view it on their phone, and then you own it on your phone. So I think that is an odd one. I don't know how NFT will stick around, but it'll probably prove me wrong like Bitcoin.
But
I was adamant that Bitcoin was going to disappear because the global governments would shut it down, because
me too,
you know, I thought, okay, good luck.
Yeah, no, I was on that boat too. But the NFT conversation, like, and I've seen a lot of brands launching limited edition NFTs, one night only, and I mean, and having sold none of them. A perfect example now is WWE had their SummerSlam pay-per-view in August, and John Cena came back. Obviously, John Cena, you know, now that he's changed careers, he just comes back every now and then just to get, you know,
like a Dwayne Johnson sort of
thing. Yeah,
like
the ratings up, especially when WWE's ratings are down, then they get John Cena for a match or two. So he had a championship title fight against, I think,
for anyone who doesn't pick this up straight away from this conversation, Carlos is a huge WWE fan.
Don't say that.
Huge WWE fan.
We've all got little black marks in our lives. But they released limited edition John Cena NFTs, and they all sold, I think, 30. It was something ridiculous. Like, I read a whole article about how unsuccessful it was. So, and I've read a lot about a lot of companies that have, a lot of artists that have just not been selling their NFTs. So, I don't know if it's gonna stay.
And I think the idea that the reason why NFT's grown so huge is that people see it as the next Bitcoin, and they're like, cool, I'm going to invest now.
Yeah.
If I put $1,000 into something,
I'm
going to sell it a year from now.
Yeah.
You know, that's the idea.
Yeah.
And I think if that doesn't become reality, if a lot of the people who have invested their $1,000 or $100 or whatever into several NFTs now at this stage, if that doesn't sell for them in 2 or 3 years in a massive way, then I think that's where NFT will be in danger.
Yeah.
Is if you're not seeing that people are getting gross returns on their investments on NFT in a couple of years.
Early now, yeah. Too early. I just don't see it working out, though. I don't know.
We probably just lack an understanding.
I suppose, you know, you can find everything on the internet at the click of a button, man.
Yeah.
You know, what makes one picture much rarer than the other, unless you're just a complete die-hard collector, or you just want to show how big your dick is, I suppose.
It's very much a collectibles thing, right? It's supposed to be sitting in the same realm as comic books.
Sure. No, of course.
But that's the odd thing, is that figurines and comic books live in a physical space, limited number of them. If someone drops one, it's gone. Digital's there forever. So it loses that. And there's people creating new ones all the time.
Yeah.
You know, whereas when Stan Lee died, there's not those comic books coming out anymore.
No,
whichever he created, you know. So there's not another like first edition Spider-Man.
No, I don't know. Like maybe.
I think what I do know is that I know nothing about comic books, and that's what I'm making very clear right now. Is that I know fuck all about comic books. I just say first edition Spider-Man because it's something I've heard before.
I'm sure there's a few first edition Spider-Man.
Yeah, like there was a first appearance of a Green Goblin that sold for massive amounts of money because the comic book is from like 1978 or something stupid, and it was so it's
amazing what collectors sort of latch onto, what gives things value. I mean, not only figurines but with comics and everything. Like you get some figurines that come out in the 80s that were basically discontinued because nobody wanted to buy them. And now fast forward 20, 25 years later, they've got this massive value attached to them because they only did a limited run of them. And now you got collectors going to all these figurine shops in the States and in Canada and Europe trying to find
I
original on-card
of a really cool figurine store in Krugersdorp.
Oh, nice.
Like a really amazing store.
There's some nice ones out here. I mean, there's one in Alberton called, it's named after Superman, Smallville Comics.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's got incredible things there. I mean, dude,
and one near where I live, in Bedford View, there's that comic book warehouse or whatever.
Yes, that's got a big one.
Whatever.
That's an interesting store because they've got that, there's like a vegan, they've got like a little supermarket in there, then they've got a vegan restaurant, then they've got like these collectible classic cars. There's like, it's a big, like it's a warehouse, and they've actually managed to...
it's probably one guy who has a few passions and
and
he managed to get a warehouse and stuck everything in 100%, there, right?
Yeah, it's a nice place. They've got Cosmic Comics up here in Bayers Nadir. It's become a big thing. Heroes of Games and Comics just here in Melrose.
And superheroes are a pet peeve of mine.
Really?
Fucking hate superhero shit. I really don't like it. Like if there's another Avengers movie, I will fucking...
No, I think it's done now.
No, I don't
but
think
Marvel
it's
done. Marvel's got
China's eating that stuff up. It makes so much money.
But Marvel's got a ton of new shows coming out from the what's that Chinese guy, Shi Shang or whatever the hell his name is, to Black Widow, to the Eternals.
Chinese market's massive for them. Massive for them. But it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate it. And there's the story of that Joker movie, which I haven't seen yet. I should watch it before I say anything anyway. But
the Joker,
the new Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, I watched it and I was terribly disappointed because it's not actually even about the Joker. I mean, they've given him a different name.
Do you know why it's not about the Joker?
Yeah, I do.
So the original script for that movie had been flying around Hollywood for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Apparently masterpiece of a script. Brilliant delve into the depth of how a person breaks and how they slowly descend into madness, right? That's what the script was. And it 100%. Was floating around Hollywood. No one would touch it for 10 years until they attached a DC Comics character
100%.
to it.
Yeah, they should never have touched it.
Just release the movie as it is.
Not that I'm an old school DC fan. Or
American Psycho is a movie you wouldn't be able to make today.
100%. I used to love Batman, and so obviously the Joker's a very important character in the series, and to have released that movie under the DC banner, and it showed like that's what's the word I'm looking for, the deconstruction of that man, like it was.
See, didn't
enjoy it at all, man.
We are anti the Joker movie for the two opposite reasons.
It
shouldn't have been a Joker movie.
100%. No, but I agree with you. It should never have been a Joker movie. It had, I mean, the message was there. The message was loud and clear. You didn't have to go steal a character just to sell millions to give your message.
It's the only way they could attach someone like Joaquin Phoenix to it as well.
100%. 100%.
But it's sad. It's really sad because if you watch, for me, American Psycho is a masterpiece movie. Masterpiece.
Yeah,
absolutely.
American Psycho is top class.
Incredible movie. And what a performance by Batman.
Christian Bale. Yeah.
Whose rant at a light gaffer on film sets is still one of the most hilarious things I've ever heard in my life.
He's a great actor.
Great actor. He lost it at a lighting guy.
Oh, really?
You heard that? Have you heard that clip?
No.
Oh, yeah, I wish I could play it back to you. It's hilarious. Just Google it. He absolutely loses it. And anyway, movies like American Psycho won't be made today just because they're not as commercially viable as some superhero nonsense.
Of course.
Which is then again, it's sad for me because you take it from an art perspective and people aren't even able to make their art. They're not even able to make films in the way that they want to tell a story because it's so adulterated by China, for example, where you want to tell a story and they have to get edit. You know, the Chinese semi-communist government in China has to have complete copy edit of a massive movie. Otherwise, it's just not commercially viable.
They get that of everything. I mean, even if a band goes and plays in China, they have to get your set list before you play, and they need to get the lyrics to every song. When Metallica played in China, they actually changed a few of their choruses. They couldn't say certain words, and they had to change one or two of the songs because of the message.
But at least it doesn't change the production for the entire planet, right?
No, sure. But
so that's them touring there. They change it for China.
It's for China.
I don't mind that. You change your market there in China.
It shows you how strict they are.
What's upsetting to me is that I'm sitting on a plane traveling to China, and there's this massive list of incredible movies, incredible stories being told. And I look around me and everyone's watching the fucking Avengers.
Yeah, always,
crap.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
But I mean, Avengers,
let's watch people
Star Wars,
fly around.
Yeah, anything Disney has now put their claws into. I mean, look, the 90s sort of was the last great decade for those type of movies. You know, we started going into the early 2000s, and I mean, there was still
I think Netflix might be our savior for that.
A lot of great movies came in the early 2000s, but then it slowly...
Netflix take enough risks for us to be creating incredible series and movies. You know, first of all, I think the choice genre for storytellers has gone away from movies and into series. Whether it's long form series or like mini series, just because it gives them more time to develop their characters, develop their story, things like that. I mean, you look at like something like Breaking Bad. Incredible. Incredible journey.
I've only watched 4 episodes.
It's amazing. You should watch Breaking Bad.
Everyone made such a big thing about it. And 4 episodes
it's hard to get into.
I was so I just couldn't sink my teeth into it.
Did you find Game of Thrones hard to get into as well?
Not at all. I was hooked in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I found it hard to get into.
I'm not a big series guy because I've got short attention span. I can do a movie.
ADD.
Yeah, no, it's bad. So it's hard for me to finish a series. I've very rarely, there's this thing on Facebook where they've got like, I'm sure you've seen it, where they list like 100 series and they like put an X next to every series you've watched, and then people share it in like 72, 65. And one day I decided to do it and I was like 11. Of which like Friends and Seinfeld was like, the thing is,
I haven't finished Seinfeld.
If you've watched 10 episodes or more, sorry, that was the thing.
Oh, 10 episodes. Yeah, okay.
I got into, I'm big into fantasy. I'm a big Lord of the Rings buff. So I love knights and dragons and
Game of Thrones was incredible.
And Game of Thrones, what I really liked about Game of Thrones was they managed to put so many different worlds in one. If you take the continent of Essos, it really represented sort of, Asia and Africa and all those Phoenician traders and that type of stuff, and those sort of Arabic nations. And then if you take what was happening in King's Landing, that was very similar to what was happening during the French Revolution, with Marie Antoinette being the queen. What is her name? What is Queen Cersei? And then if you see what was happening in the north, it was very reminiscent of sort of old Viking and kind of Scottish fables and things like that. So there's so many different stories in one, and that's what I really enjoyed.
And they developed characters from every
100%. The character development was just incredible. And what I liked about it is that no character was safe. Anything.
I couldn't believe
anything
I was so
could
shocked.
go.
I remember the first time I watched Game of Thrones, it was before there was Netflix or anything here. And I wasn't watching it on Mnet. I was pirating it.
Yeah.
I had pirated copies that I got from someone somewhere. I don't know. And literally the banner for the first season is Sean Bean, the actor Sean Bean. He's also in Lord of the Rings. He's like the main character, and I think he's dead like 3 episodes in or something.
Episode 9, he gets beheaded.
Gone. Like,
crazy.
How wild is that?
Crazy. No,
like, this is the main character. You're expecting 10 seasons from this guy.
You was going to go.
And gone. You're shocked.
You just never knew it was going to go. I still remember.
Amazing.
Still remember in season 3, also episode 9, the Red Wedding, where
that's the pick of the bunch, right?
The remaining like big members, they killed half of them in one foul swoop. So I enjoyed that because it's no one was safe and you're always a little bit anxious.
Anyone who's bitching about spoilers now, you've had enough time to watch Game
More
of
than
Thrones.
enough.
You've had so much. It's been off
More
the
than
air
enough.
for so long.
But that's the thing, man. I like, because sometimes you watch these movies that create these like crazy. It's so like the principal character will go through hell. You should have died a million times, but he carries on going. What I like about this is like they could die. If the guy was up against the dragon, or if a guy was up against 5 oaks or the sword, he was going to die. There was no like unrealistic expectation that he was going to survive and be the hero that was going to. Which I like.
The expectation was actually the inverse, right?
Yeah,
you watch Game of Thrones and you're like, oh fuck, someone else is gonna die. Don't.
And what was amazing is how they, and I mean, speaking of woke culture and everything, is how they empowered sort of the female characters and the cripple that Brandon, that he ended up becoming king and stuff. They empowered the smaller characters, the dwarf.
I like that.
So it was pretty cool. So at the end of the day, you had all these massive warriors. I mean, Khal Drogo died in the first season. Sean Bean died in the first season. You had all these,
which Harry Potter did in a way as well, where
all these big warriors
you build up Harry Potter the entire show, and then the nerdy kid.
Yeah, sure. Because I mean, sometimes you have these shows where the protagonist goes through hell. I mean, he should have died 17 times, and then at the end he survives. But you're like, come on,
Yeah.
Although that works for John Wick. But
so, I mean, speaking of woke culture,
although episode 3 got a bit too much, like he should be dead already. But the first two, it worked. I
haven't watched even one John Wick.
Are you joking?
I haven't even watched 5 minutes of a John Wick.
Yes, see, I've watched each John Wick at least 10 times. Love it. It's my favorite. It's I think my favorite all-time character. I'm gonna get him tattooed on my leg. Yeah,
it's just not available anywhere that I watch.
I just bought it on DVD. But it's always on.
I'm not gonna buy DVD. I don't even have a DVD player.
You know what? I don't have a DVD player anymore as well. I've just got all these old DVDs. But I've been watching it a lot on Mnet, on channel. I think channel 108 always got reruns and stuff like that on DSTV, not Mnet.
I'll find it.
Yeah. Now I've got a ton. So my DVD player, it was a home theater. Like those old school home theater systems. It bombed out, and I just never got it fixed. So I've got all these really cool. I've got a really cool movie collection, especially from the 90s, like Empire Records, Mallrats,
great movie.
That type of stuff. Dazed and Confused.
How many of those movies can you make today?
I mean, almost nothing.
Zero.
Almost nothing.
Breakfast Club.
There's just absolutely no interest.
Get Breakfast Club.
I mean,
past.
imagine trying to do a Dazed and Confused now. You won't be able to.
Let's not even go that far back. Try and make Tropic Thunder today.
I forget it, but I mean, Tropic Thunder.
One of the most
Robert Downey Jr. will get fired immediately.
Gone.
Yeah, no. There was actually
one of the most outrageously hilarious movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I actually read a whole
if you'd be able to make the first Hangover movie.
I read a whole thing about Tropic Thunder the other day about Robert Downey Jr.'s blackface and all that type of stuff, and it's crazy to think that we're here now.
It's not that long ago.
Well, the first Hangover.
Even the first Hangover movie.
Yeah.
Or any of the Hangover movies. I mean, I bring up the first one because it's really the only one worth.
It's the only one worth watching because the rest are just rinse and repeat.
The third one was really horrific. The
rest
second
is just
one,
rinse and repeat.
if you had never watched the first Hangover movie and you just watched the second one, masterpiece. Great.
Yeah. No, sure.
But
sure.
I mean, they just took the template from the first movie.
No, it was rinse and repeat,
made it
100%.
right, yeah.
It's exact. I mean, everything happened at the exact same time.
And they paced it exactly the same way,
100%.
whatever, which is, I mean, fine if that's
But
how you
they
make
do that a lot with sequels. I mean, I've seen a lot of that, especially these comedic sequels. They follow a specific formula and they
have a recipe for an episode.
100%.
Right? But like a Family Guy, let's make a recipe for an episode, which
it's amazing that South Park has survived throughout this whole thing. Because I think
because they started early enough.
They've been releasing so many great pandemic episodes and vaccination episodes.
You wouldn't be able to make South Park.
I mean, you wouldn't start it from scratch.
You wouldn't be able to.
No, forget it. No, forget it. But it's still flying high. But I mean, you're right because it's been around.
But they've got immunity because they've been sued from day one.
Yeah.
So South Park sort of have free reign to say what they want because they've been sued from day one and they've got away with it for however long. Let's see how long they can get away with it. But you would never be able to start fresh with a South Park like TV.
No, you wouldn't.
You would never be able to.
You'd struggle. Yeah, you'd struggle.
Yeah, and I think I watched the Motley Crue Dirt biopic, which is based on the biography.
Yeah.
I think I bought this T-shirt after that. What a wild movie!
So
what a wild run they went on.
I've got I'm a massive Motley Crue fan. I mean, I've even got one of my favorite Crue songs tattooed over here. So I read The Dirt years ago. I think 2005. I actually bought it. I read it, and it's crazy. They left so much shit out. Let me just tell you. I mean, look what you saw.
Compared to the book.
Compared to the book, was just the tip of the iceberg. So much so that when the movie came out, because it came out now in these sort of woke times, Nikki Sixx came out and he said that no, they lied a lot in the book, that they for the sake of trying to blow their characters out, they're these, out of proportion to try and make them sound like they're these crazy rock stars, that they lied a lot, which is, he's obviously now just trying to save face, because there's a story in the book where they were taking turns having sex with a girl who was drugged, and she didn't know she was having sex with all four of them. That's rape. You know what I'm saying? So he's backtracked a hell of a lot, saying that
and a lot of the stories are substantiated by other people. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of their stories are horrific.
No, crazy. They did some,
they did some
Sixx, crazy things.
When he really fell into despair, it was after the death of the friend in the car accident.
Vince Neil, yeah. But that was early on. That was 83. So they were celebrating the South Shout at the Devil tour. So they were celebrating the success of their second album, Shout at the Devil. Yeah, that was just nuts. But they did some crazy things with women. It's totally crazy self-indulgent madness that, now, Nikki Sixx was the first to come out, and just because he's been very much on the woke culture bandwagon, and when this movie came out, a lot of people went and got the book, and they were like, hold on, but you did this, that, and the other, so listen, that book is wild. And I don't know if you've read the Heroin Diaries. So as we were saying earlier, during the Girls tour, Nikki Sixx got hectic into heroin again, and so much so that I think they cancelled bits of the tour because he refused to get out of his house. He became so paranoid, he was living in his walk-in closet.
I remember that.
And he kept a diary of that. So he had this woman that would visit him daily to shoot up with him and have sex with him. And this went on for like months. And he kept a diary of it. Like, let me tell you, it's absolutely disgusting. You grow up idolizing these people because, it's the basis of Motley Crue. Oh, wow, look how cool he is. In those days, Nikki Sixx was covered in tattoos. Not sleeves weren't big in the 90s, and he was like 2 sleeves and whatever. And I thought he was such a hero. I'm like, what a champion. And you read this book and you read how, like deconstructed this person has become, how filthy this person is, how devoid of morals and values, and you're like, wow, this was my hero growing up. It's a hard read. When I put that down, I was like, I still remember watching Motley Crue, because I've seen Motley Crue 4 times, and just looking at him, obviously as a fan, and thinking, no, fam.
Well, drug abuse is a massive killer of empathy, and that's one of the things, is people who use drugs consistently over a longer period of time, they become devoid of empathy through no fault of their own, but it's purely a symptom of drug use.
100%.
And I've got a very interesting book about drug use with the Nazis during World War II. Basically, the entire German public was on crystal meth during that period.
Oh, wow.
The drug is called Pervitin.
Okay.
So this was an over-the-counter medication, like what we would call BioPlus today.
Oh, okay.
It was just a stimulant. It was something you could just go into a pharmacy, get yourself some BioPlus so that you can get through the day and work harder.
Yeah.
And obviously during wartime, a large mass of the German public had to work extended hours to try and produce enough uniforms, boots, machinery, equipment, whatever they needed for the war effort, food, everything. So the country had to be more productive. So they really promoted the use of this drug called Pervitin, which chemically is very similar to crystal meth.
Wow.
So it was a massive stimulant used across the entire population of the German public, let alone just Nazis or Adolf Hitler himself or whatever, like the really crazy Nazi groups.
Yeah.
And I think this sort of provides a little bit of insight to that question that we sort of all ask, is like, how did a civilized nation of people descend into such a horrific period in our history? Like, how were they so accepting of what the Nazi revolution was doing, or what Adolf Hitler or whoever of the Nazi generals were able to get away with, that the public was accepting of? And I think that perhaps could explain that, is that this becoming devoid of empathy through just regular drug usage.
And and nationalism was still a big thing in those days. So, the Nazi war machine with all its propaganda,
Well, very socialist, right?
We speak of Uncle Sam and whatever, do the right thing for your country, whatever. But it's really what was about that, I actually watched a movie. There's a series on Netflix. I think it's called Becoming a Dictator, or How to Become a Dictator, whatever, where they speak about Idi Amin and Adolf Hitler and a couple of those Fidel Castro and those guys. And Hitler really just, he was so good at, his war machine was so good at brainwashing the people.
Yeah, the propaganda machine was incredible.
It was just incredible.
He's the first world leader to elect a minister of propaganda.
100%, yeah.
He realized the importance of propaganda in what he wanted to achieve.
And that's how he got everybody on his side.
For sure.
Over and above dragging them.
He was also an incredible orator.
Of course, yeah.
Very passionate. You'll be hard pressed to find an Adolf Hitler speech where he's not screaming and shouting.
Yeah. He was very passionate.
Yeah, which is effective and effective
but that's the thing,
propaganda tool.
you know what? You'll follow a guy like that. If you see a guy that's so charismatic, so passionate, so what's the word I'm looking for? Effervescent, even. Then you're just like, that's my guy. I'm going to follow that guy. The guys that came before him didn't have that.
So he tried to overthrow the government in the early days of the Nazi party. They tried to actually launch a coup against the German parliament at the time, and they failed. And this is when he went to prison.
Yeah.
So this was before he was leader, but he was the party leader at that time.
Yeah.
The other thing I think a lot of people don't know about them is that the ideology of the Nazi party was not created by Adolf Hitler at all.
No, it wasn't. No.
It was created by a playwright who was a drunkard.
It was Saddam Hussein that they were having a meeting of like president, vice president, ministers, whatever, and he walked in with his cronies and he cleaned the place out. And he was like, right, now I'm in charge. Let's do this.
The cool thing about Saddam Hussein that also a lot of people don't know, and because of American media, how we perceive Iraq is this barren desert wasteland of people who are just like sort of sand people, unintelligent, uneducated, and devoid of modern social skills or modern society or modern politics or anything. Meanwhile, Saddam Hussein's entire compound overlooked the ruins of Babylon. Literally, he was the leader of the birthplace of modern civilization.
But he was the champion. He was the champion of the people as well. He did so much for the people, and that's how he got them to back him.
Yeah.
He was going into the villages, into the homes. He was actually saying they didn't have food. He was getting food deployed into every home. And whilst he was doing this, he was cleaning out. I think it was in the 70s, somewhere in late 70s, they had this council meeting and he just cleaned them out. One night, thanks for coming, I'm in charge now. And nobody saw anything wrong with that because of what he was doing to the community. Same story with, I suppose a lot of these guys are very much the same. That notorious drug dealer from Colombia, what's his name? Pablo Escobar. He became the champion of the people, building soccer fields, town after town, after village after village after village named after him, where he provided everything.
The Colombian police and the Colombian politicians fighting a battle with Pablo Escobar wasn't in their best interest.
No, 100%.
They were forced into it by the American government.
Yeah.
And they were losing. They were losing the fight against Pablo Escobar until the DEA eventually got hold of him. But
I saw a very cool movie with Penelope Cruz about called something Escobar, but in love with Pablo. Oh, wait, just hold on. I need to
Google it.
I need to get Penelope Cruz movies.
Get the name right.
It's a really good movie. It was on one of the channels. Yes, look, Penelope Cruz is a great actress. She makes a lot of noise, but fuck, she's a great actress.
We're nearly at an hour.
Oh, we're nearly at an hour. Oh, her name's Sanches. No wonder I like her. All right, there we go. Penelope Cruz. She's Penelope Cruz Sanches.
Can we disagree on something else?
That she's a great actress.
Just liking her in general.
No, look, I don't like her. She's a bit noisy. She gives me the heebie-jeebies, but she's good.
I'm not a fan.
Oh, there we go. It's called Loving Pablo, but the full name of the movie is something like, Loving Pablo, Hating Escobar.
Right.
It's based on
one of his girlfriends or what?
Yeah, Virginia Vallejo, who was
the news reporter.
Yeah,
right?
There we go. So it's basically about her relationship and with him. So loving Pablo but hating the man Escobar. It's a very poignant title. I really like it. Very good movie. Must check it out. I haven't seen it.
I will watch it.
You just have to get past all her screeching, and she screeches a lot.
I watched the Netflix biopic, whatever, the series.
Oh, yes, I've also seen that.
That now they've got the Mexican one. Was it Narcos?
Narcos, yeah.
Amazing.
She screeches a lot. That's my problem with her. But she's a good actress. But she screeches a lot.
I love that hilarious bit that Family Guy have of her.
I've never watched one episode of Family Guy. I must just...
oh, you have to.
I must just put it out there.
You have to. Just get onto Netflix. Just catch up on some stuff.
No.
So
everyone's always telling me to, and I just never do, man. I'm bad with... Like I told you earlier, I'm bad with series.
So they're a bit like South Park in the way that they...
Yeah. I know. Like I've seen skits, I've seen bits and pieces, and people send you things, but I've never actually followed a few episodes. And
there's a really hilarious bit about Penelope Cruz where they make fun of her nose. They say she looks like a horse.
She's got.
And then they interview her. They interview her at a movie premiere, but then they think that she's Seabiscuit acting in a movie. Very funny.
No, she's a good actress, but she's hell of irritating.
I liked her in that Tom Cruise movie, though. Which one was it? Vanilla Sky?
Vanilla Sky.
Good movie.
Yeah, it was all right.
Good movie.
She's a good actress. She was also good in Blown. She screeched a bit there too.
Let's give Tom Cruise a little bit of props because it's very, very popular right now to shit on Tom Cruise.
Nobody likes him, eh?
Why does no one like Tom Cruise? It's because of the Scientology thing.
I think it's because, and I think it's because they think that he's a reptile and he's drinking adrenochrome and not aging.
He is. That's what Scientology is.
I think they think he's part of Pizzagate and Hillary Clinton and all this.
But let's give Tom Cruise a little bit of credit. How good is Tom Cruise? I think they shot a new fucking Mission Impossible movie where they had stunts with a helicopter, where they had to fly a helicopter between two mountains or whatever. And he's like, I'll do it.
Oh, wow. How old is he?
Too old. Too old for how he looks.
Yeah, but it's all this children's blood.
That's exactly it.
It's adrenochrome.
J-Lo and Madonna. The three of them, definitely.
I've got a mate who's really into
conspiracies.
That whole thing, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, he always sends me some interesting articles.
It has to be. How do they look so good? What do they have?
I don't know.
What do they have that we don't?
Or the article about Obama's wife actually being a man. And crazy stuff. Michelle Obama, and then they show check how she's got man arms and crazy stuff.
She's just strong.
Anyway, there's a lot of children going missing, and there's a lot of young looking actors and actresses.
Listen, you don't even need to go digging into conspiracies and stuff to find some squirrely shit in Hollywood.
Did you ever get to read about Pizzagate?
If you just look at Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, and then who's the one who didn't kill himself in prison?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. That's squirrely.
I see his homie now is in a bit of shit. Maxwell.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
So my mate who's big into conspiracy theory started talking about Jeffrey Epstein months before he got arrested, and I was like, Jeffrey who?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, he's part of these 18 names, these indictments, and I'm like, are you crazy, bro? And then next thing you know, this thing happens and he gets arrested, and he was calling it.
The scary thing about conspiracy theorists is that when they're right, it fuels this whole thing of theirs where it's like, you were right about one thing, so that means all 20 things that I've said, all the ludicrous shit that I've said before now has some validity.
Yeah.
Which is
I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them are right. I mean,
well, there's that.
There's a lot of stuff that's super rooted in reality.
That Alex Jones guy. Do you know Alex Jones?
No.
From InfoWars. So he's banned from everything like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. So you can only go view his content if you go to his website. The guy is a fucking crazy guy.
No, it sounds a bit like David Icke and those oaks.
So he's crazy. Alex Jones is crazy. He's like a crazy conspiracy theorist, whatever. And they finally got him on one thing where he went hard at something being fake, but it was legit. And there were families involved and people were killed. And he went hard on these people are paid actors from the deep state. Fucking losing it, right? And he was wrong about that. And he came out and apologized about being wrong about that. But that's how they got him. That's how eventually, because they've been chasing him for a while, the social media networks.
Yeah.
Alex Jones is surprisingly, I hate him. He's a fucking crazy guy.
Yeah.
He's surprisingly right about a lot of stuff, which is scary.
Yeah. I mean, at a stage, look, it was QAnon stuff. My mate was coming with all this info from QAnon, and I was like, but who's this Q? But he was getting a lot of stuff right. But lately things have gone a little pear-shaped for Q and his followers.
I think COVID is one of the big things for conspiracy theorists.
Yes, right? It's been making them...
and Yeah,
It's
they've
driving
been
them
wrong
nuts.
about a lot of it.
Yeah, no, 100% they have.
So there's the one conspiracy that I sort of buy into, that it was made in a lab, but not because of some villainous, horrible thing that they try to make it on purpose. They make these sort of viruses in labs all the time so that they can try find cures for them before they actually come out.
I can buy into that because I don't think it was a bat from one of those wet markets.
So
the more I think about it, the more I think it was definitely made in a
So the
in a lab.
scientific community sort of thinks it was made in that lab in Wuhan because of its...
A lot has come out of that.
Well, its incapability to survive in UV light.
Yeah.
So it's only sort of handles artificial light. It struggles with UV light, which suggests that it could possibly have been made in that lab. But again, it's a lab that studies viruses.
Yeah.
It just escaped that lab.
Yeah.
It's...
And what a shit show it's
that's
been.
what it seems like to me. Anyway, Carlos, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I always like to finish with one thing.
Did we have to end with COVID?
We had to end with COVID.
Oh, man.
What do you want to end with?
Not COVID.
Okay.
Some music or some...
Okay, let's go back to
Or
music.
Sophia Loren. Let's end with Sophia Loren because you've got it tattooed on your forearm
Don't
and I'm
bring
quite
it
a fan.
I'm a big fan of Sophia Loren.
I've been fanboying her again lately.
But I just, this is going to just be an Italian tattoo. I'm just Italian woman as much as I can get.
Just don't put my ex-girlfriend, please. Don't be like Icardi who stole his best friend's wife and then tattooed his 3 kids on his body. Remember that? The football players play for PSG.
It's horrible.
How crazy is that story? His best friend was at Maxi Lopez, who were playing the same soccer team. They're both Argentinian. Stole his wife and he had 3, obviously his friend had 3 lighties and then he
tattooed the lighties
and then he
onto.
tattooed the lighties on.
I don't even know that story.
Yeah.
How are you telling me that I don't know?
I don't know, bro.
That sounds too crazy for me to not know.
Icardi's a crazy guy.
Did you hear about this thing of Karim Benzema, by the way?
No.
So he's been charged in in France for bribery.
Yes.
He bribed Matteo Valbuena for a sex tape.
Yes, I remember that.
That's why he didn't play for France for the
it
longest
was
time.
for quite a long time.
So he's got I think it's like a 5-year suspended sentence or something out of it. So if he commits any other crimes, which all the footballers seem to have gotten into trouble for tax fraud crimes in Spain.
Yeah.
So that could be scary for him if he did do any of the tax fraud crimes that all the footballers did in Spain. They seem to have all been advised by some sort of accountant to avoid paying taxes.
Yeah.
They all got suspended sentences, but now he's got this one looming. So that could be trouble for Karim Benzema.
Yeah, but the one that's looming, is it in a French court?
Yeah, but still European courts.
Well, I don't know.
We'll see.
But
let's see what happens.
He did score this weekend, so we can end on a
what
positive.
A player.
On a positive. Yeah, he is. He's very good.
Right, ending on a positive. Carlos Sanchez, thank you for bringing up your ex-girlfriend. Carlos Sanchez is currently looking, ladies.
Did I bring it up twice, eh?
No, I don't know how many times. You just said Italian. So thank you so much for listening to the show. I like to finish every show with one thing. Look into that camera and say, fuck something. This camera right here.
This one?
Yeah.
Fuck something, like
Choose
whatever
something.
topic.
Choose something.
Fuck FC Porto.
Fuck the Avengers.
Fam. I'm a big Iron Man fan.
Okay, wait, let me do a new one.
Luckily, I'm not wearing my Iron Man socks.
Let me do a new one.
Fuck cucumber.
No, cucumber's great.
It's the pits, bro. All salads are the pits.
Lettuce is a disaster.
No, that's a disease.
What the fuck are people having lettuce for?
I don't know, bro.
It's got the nutritional value of water.
No, bro. All my wraps and burgers come without lettuce. Most of my burgers just come with meat on the bun. So it's not really a burger.
At least a bit of sauce.
No, of course, yeah.
Anyway, fuck superhero movies.
Great.
Okay, wait. Fuck Hollywood. That's better. That's a good one.
I mean,
thank you for joining us on this episode of the Marco Martins Revolution. If you want to host a podcast just like this one, hopefully yours is a little bit different. Go to podcasttv.com/revolution and get yourself a discount on your first order of a podcast. See you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.